You can kind of consider this a bit of a more clearer version of a video I did in 8K, or I converted to 8K from the original 360. But you can kind of consider this more of a, like I say, clearer version of a video that I did about 20 hours ago at the time I'm doing this. And that video was basically talking about the two adult tales, fan fiction stories that you just need to see and read for yourself. Now, the reason I'm doing a more clearer version is due to the fact that, well, I thought I'd done it more correctly, if you will. 20 hours ago, I thought I'd basically had it pretty much in tow when I was, going and basically, going on the bus. Well, I was on the bus basically, and even though you can hear me, you hear the bus in the background. So I do apologize for that. Which is why I'm making it up with this more clear version and maybe a little bit more detailed. Of course, I have time before I have to get ready for work. I got about almost 78 minutes, apparently. Yeah, 78 minutes before I start getting myself ready. But anyway, let's get into, what this video, this more clear version, is about. Now, like I said in the original video, and where hopefully you heard some of me, I played it back and I heard some of myself, but anyway, to get to the point here, just like I said in that video, these are two stories that are really interesting in their own right. And I've talked about them before, I've mentioned them before, but they're really interesting in their own right. For example, one of the stories has an interesting history to it, and that is the adventures of Miles and the Wives of Mobius. The reason it has an interesting history to it is because the original author, Fox, we're just going to call him Fox, I think, because his full name is Fox Knight Yuko 009, so we're just going to call him Fox Knight. His original story that he did, that has the same plot as this one, called The Dissatisfied Wives Club, the original story he did, had basically the similar scenarios as this one does, basically almost beat for beat. But there were some things that were different between the two. One of the biggest differences between the two was in Dissatisfied Wives Club, there was no inclusion of Tails getting it on with his mom. Yeah, there was no incense included in it. So, what Fox Knight did here is he basically decided to add in said incestual moment between the two. He did. Now, the similarities that kind of lead up to this moment before and afterwards are identical. You see, one of the little subplots that kind of weaves its way in to making this incestual moment happen is the fact that Rosemary is getting suspicious. She's getting suspicious as to why her son is taking off a lot, what is going on. So she decides to hire some people to investigate for her. And I think they pretty much do stay the same. They might be a little different. But in the original one, she brings in Tangle and Whisper. That's right. In the original story, she brings in Tangle and Whisper to do investigating. And I think in this one, she might have switched them out for Blaze and Marina. I'm not totally sure. Or she may have kept them the same. I'm not really sure. But Rosemary, basically in both versions, gets a couple of female detectives, if you will, in this incarnation of Sonic and his friends, or Tails and his friends, to kind of get the heads up for her, and see what's going on as to why her son, has been acting strangely, just taking off and all that, disappearing. She wants answers. And in the original story that Fox Knight did, In the original story, she was just worried like something was up, like she didn't know what was going on. There was, in the original story, no signs of incestual motivation. But in the remake, there is. In the remake, there is, because she suddenly starts to get these urges. Because her, additional plot, her additional motivation, I should say, in the remake, not just plot, but additional motivation, I should say, in the remake. Excuse me for a second. Drank some coffee there. Wake me up a little bit. But like I said, her motivation, if you will, in the remake, in addition to wanting to know what's going on, her additional motivation, the extension of a plot, is just like all the women that Tails is getting on with, if you will, from Fiona to Vanilla to Bernadette, I think, to Sally to Bunny, I think, just the list could go on. Rosemary herself is also going through a similar situation to where she needs certain cleansing, if you will. She needs certain relief, if you know what I'm talking about. Basically, she needs to get sexually satisfied through very, very erotic intimacy. And basically, like I said, it's the same thing that all the other girls are kind of going through. And Tails is at this age now where pretty much he can do that. He can provide that for all of them. But the last one he would expect to do it for is his mom. Yeah, it's the last person he would expect to do it for. I mean, he pretty much lists off the fact that, after he gets that moment, or even before that moment, he's bedded with Sonic's mom from the comics, Bernadette, and Cream's mom from the games and the comics, Vanilla, and so on. And anyway, and basically, in this version, part of her motivation to see what's going on is suddenly she's starting to develop the same kind of feelings and wants when she sees her son. And basically she's starting to fall in love with her son, even though she knows it's wrong to, act like this. Just like sometimes in other stories involving Tails, when it comes to these kind of scenarios, Rosemary herself is being more motivated by the lustful side of her mind. In other words, the reasonable side is trying to say, don't do this, but the lustful side is like, yes, do it. It's kind of like the angel and the devil. It's like the angel's trying to tell you, don't do it, it's wrong, but the devil's trying to tell you, it's right, go for it. And the devil's side is winning out more so than the angel. And that's kind of what happens here. And you know what's crazy? Is it's not the first time. It's not the first time. As I said in a review of My Son's Keeper, which I think you can find here on my channel, Rosemary ends up with Tails and, along with Bernadette, because in that version, both husbands have passed away, both women need satisfaction, and Tails basically wanting to keep his promise to his dad to make his mom happy, as well as be a good friend to Sonic and make Sonic's moms happy, agrees in that story to take both women on as his new wives. So in other words, he gets basically two wives for the price of one, and they basically as a result get a threesome relationship, out of it, which would include both Rosemary and Bernadette getting it on with each other, when Tails is not around. But anyway, to get back to this one, basically the big difference is Rosemary is starting to have the same feelings as all these other ladies that Tails is with. And when Tails sees this, it's revealed to him by Rosemary herself. Yeah, at first he's kind of like, no, this is not right, this is wrong. But just like the other ladies, he gets roped into it, and the more lustful bestial side of him wins out, and basically him and his mom have, the moment of their lives, if you know what I mean. And the one thing that worries him with the encounter with his mom, and even previously his encounter with, Vanilla and Bernadette and others that come after and before, is there's a good chance he could have got them pregnant. Now, the one thing that the author does do, just like some other authors that kind of tease that kind of scenario, is at least they allude to the fact that Tails and us as an audience won't know until, the females that he feels he's knocked up, have taken the test, if you will. He won't know until the females he's knocked up have taken the test. But overall, this story, Adventures of Miles and the Wives of Mobius, by Fox Knight is, again, basically the same story as his original version of it called The Dissatisfied Wives Club, but the only difference, like I said, is unlike the original, he didn't include the incestual scene in there like he does here. He didn't do that. And what's interesting, too, is anytime an author, and Fox Knight does this as well, anytime an author adds in this scene between Rosemary and Tails in the stories, they always make a note, either on the same page, or, not just on the same page, but they make a note, like they dedicate a whole page to this one little note, telling the reader, the audience, that they do not support incense, that they feel it's wrong, it's not right, and shouldn't happen, which is true. Which is definitely true. And, they even, before they get to that moment, even add a little intonation, if you will, intonation or notion, if you will, notion. Basically a reminder that they still don't support it even before they get to that scene. Like when they're telling the story and they're getting ready to transition over to that scene, they do put a little indentation note in there saying, hey, just a reminder, we don't support this, so if you want to skip it, go ahead. If not, enjoy. And, I think that's a good move on their part because they realize not a lot of people support, incense, at all, because it is indeed wrong. But these are the kind of stories, that, will lend themselves to something like that happening, to a moment like that happening. I mean, if you watch Bandit the Sage and his anime Abandon, he's reviewed a lot of animes, where basically incense is kind of like, a subplot, if not the main plot, of the story. In fact, one of the animes that he reviewed years ago called Angel Sanctuary, one of its main romance plots deals with, incense between a brother and a sister. And then even before that, he did a review on Infinland, I think, where the female cousin wants to get it on with her male cousin. So, you can probably see that, when it comes to other media like anime or manga, or even comics itself, it's mainstream comics, by the way, it's nothing new. It's there. It's always been there. I mean, we all know about Marvel's situation with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, so it's always been there. So to see it included in even fan fictions like this is nothing new. The only thing that I do appreciate, as I mentioned, is the fact basically that the authors are, up to speed enough to basically let the audience know, hey, if you're not a fan like we are of incense, because we're not fans either, then we're just giving you a warning. You could skip this scene and move on. And I like the fact that in addition, when they get ready to do that scene, or or get ready to transition to that scene in the story, they still give you an additional reminder of, hey, just again, that we're not fans of incense, so if you're not, you can skip this before we get to that scene. But yeah, I do appreciate that they put that in there. I really, really, really do. But besides that, it's a funny, humorous story that, is of erotic nature and everything, and I recommend checking it out for yourselves to kind of get a better idea of what I'm talking about. The other story that I talked about in the original video was Miles and the MILFs. Sorry about that. And in the original video, and I've talked about this story before, Miles is put into a situation, Tails that is put into a situation where he has to basically satisfy the urges of certain women, certain wives, if you will, MILFs. And he does this because it's revealed that Tails, in this story, in this continuity, is into MILFs. Yeah, he's into MILFs. Basically, he's attracted to older women. So upon learning this, Sonic's dad basically talks to Tails, and this is all. Now, the thing about some of these stories is, even though they take place, kind of in an alternate reality, non-official and all that, the settings are very identical to what we're used to. So in this case, Jules, in this story, which is Bernadette's husband, Sonic's father from Archie Comics, is still roboticized. He's still roboticized. So Jules asks Tails if he can do him a favor, and Tails, of course, is like, yeah, sure, what do you need? And he basically plainly asked him, not just straight out, but plainly asked him if he could satisfy his wife's sexual urges, which Tails, of course, being who he is taken aback by, because of the fact that Tails, when he hears this, he's like, wait a minute, you're asking me. I mean, he's looking at Jules, right? And again, remember, Jules is roboticized. He's looking at Jules, and Tails' first thought is, wait a minute, or first questionable thought is, wait a minute, you want me to have sex with your wife? Wouldn't that be cheating? He's asking the guy that's asking him. But Jules, believe it or not, justifies the reason that not only is he roboticized, so it's not possible for him to be able to do it, but also the fact that he and Bernadette are many steps ahead, that they already used semen from Jules before he got roboticized to store away just in case they ever had the urge to have another child. All they need now is pretty much the battery to, basically all they need is like the battery, the lightning bolt, if you will, to make, to basically activate the, I guess you could say, the fertilized, comatose, seed, if you will, of Jules, to get, the process started, to get the life, that will spring from it to become active, if you know what I mean. And I do apologize if I stumbled on my words there. It's, like I said, it's early, and I'm doing this so I can get some more content out to you guys before, during today, while my mom's home and I'm working. And just drinking some coffee there to keep going. But anyway, like I said, getting back on topic here, guys. Basically, the steps ahead to where they plan to have another child out and everything. They froze, Jules' semen, if you will, his contribution to the life that will be brought to life. They basically froze it, and I guess they had doctors artificially insert it into Bernadette, and now all they need is a key to start the engine to get it going and all that, to kind of bring it to life. And that's where Tails comes in. And again, Tails is taken aback by this. He doesn't like the idea, but Jules reminds him that as a freedom fighter, he made a vow, a promise to help those in need. And Tails is the kind of guy that, as noted, will not, say no to anybody because he wants to honor that vow. So reluctantly, he does agree. But he's not the only one what I'm trying to say is he's not the only okay, let me rewind here. Hold on. Okay, what I was trying to say is Jules, I should say, is not the only one that convinces Tails into doing this. Because later on, Cream, because she overhears what Jules, I think she overhears what Jules wants Tails to do. Cream later on, asks Tails the same thing, and even uses a bit of emotion, a bit of tears to get it, to convince him to do it with his mom Vanilla, which Tails agrees to do. Again, a little reluctant, a little taken aback, but Tails does agree to do it. And then in the more recent chapter, it's somebody that, has been put into these situations before when it comes to Tails' sexual urges or motivations in these kind of stories. The third on the list so far is Alicia Acorn, who is the mother of Sally Acorn and Archie Sonic. And basically the reason there is, just like with Jules, almost similarly, the king, Sally's dad, in the comics and the cartoon, is incapacitated. He's basically handicapped, just like he was towards the end of the comics. So, the pre-soft retcon version of the comics, I should say. So he can't really satisfy Alicia's urges anymore. So, once again, Tails is, brought to the rescue because Jules lets the king in on what's been going on. So, Jules, has the king basically convince Alicia that, he has a solution to her problem. And Sally, unbeknownst to what's going to happen, is sent to Tails' home to get him to come to the castle, which Tails does. And that's when Tails finds out, I have to satisfy her now too. And once again, he's kind of reluctant, but because it's the king, and he doesn't want to get on his bad side or anything, basically goes, through with it. Now, what's interesting is, what comes out of these stories as well. Out of this story anyway. Bernadette, like I said, is already set to have a child, already planned ahead. But she gets so into it, more so than even Vanilla in this story, that she basically, in the third chapter, because one of the common themes, I should say, not goals, but one of the common themes here, in these stories, kind of a pattern, if you will, is each woman each MILF that Tails does this with, ask him to come back and give him more satisfaction. Bernadette starts it off. Vanilla pretty much catches on that, even though Tails didn't say anything, but she pretty much catches on to the fact that Tails has done it more with Bernadette. So she would want the same kind of satisfaction. And then Alicia catches on to that too without Tails saying anything. And so Tails basically agrees to all of that. And what's interesting, like I said, Bernadette, who started this whole situation, is, like I mentioned, is more, it's more sexually active, more hungry, if you will, than the other ladies, even Vanilla to an extent, that for a third go-around, she basically, and this is described in the story, she basically buys a bunch of whipped cream and sprays it all over her body, if you catch my drift. And she has enough there for Tails to even spray some on his. And they can be basically a big old, they can, with the intentions, I should say, that they can be involved with each other in a big desserty version of intimacy, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that's how far she's taking it, basically, even though she knows that it's only to satisfy her urges, but to take it that far, it's like, whoa, what is going on here? But what's interesting about it, though, about these stories, I should say overall, is, again, some of the scenarios. Like I said, Bernadette's already planned to have a child, but she's taking it now to this next level to where even though she's like a month or two pregnant now, officially, she wants more. She wants to take it and become more erotic, and Jules is cool with it, because again, he's roboticized. There's nothing he can do. Vanilla, on the other hand, when she had her moment initially with Tails, originally told Tails, let me know when you want to pull out, if you catch my drift, because, there's a good chance that the unthinkable could happen. But it's during that moment that Vanilla gets so into it that basically she has to flat out admit to Tails, even before the moment of satisfaction occurs, that she kind of lied and she does want Tails to give her life, if you know what I mean. And he basically kind of does. But what's interesting is Vanilla knows that Tails is not ready for this and can see it, and even tells Tails, look, you don't have to worry about being the father, because I'll take responsibility. I'll raise the child just like I did with Cream. So Vanilla's already like, a step ahead with Tails when it comes to basically letting him know, don't worry, if you don't want to be the father, that's fine. I'm cool with it, because I don't want, basically she's saying, look, I don't want you to get in trouble with anybody, when they see potentially that I'm pregnant and be curious as to who the father could be and everything. I don't want you to have to, come out and say, well, I'm the one, and get in a bunch of trouble. So at least she, understands that, even though at the beginning of the third chapter, which follows up afterwards, she kind of still teases him a little bit about maybe them being more because of that, but still kind of, does agree that, look, promise, I should say, that Tails doesn't have to worry about anything. Alicia Acorn, on the other hand, is really interesting. She really is, because basically, in my chin just hit the mic there, I do apologize. But Alicia Acorn is a little interesting because she's more reluctant. She's kind of like in the role of Tails, basically. The roles kind of get reversed. And she basically feels like all Tails is doing is giving her pity sex, but Tails has to reassure her that's not the case. And he does find her attractive. He does find her to be a hot MILF. And basically, just like the women before him, he's the one that initiates the procedure with Alicia. And over time, during that course, Alicia gets into it, even to the point that she gets so into it that, according to the description of the story, she feels like she's melting butter, like, olive oil at the end of Palet's Voo-Woos, where she melts into a running puddle of butter on the floor and just her face is on the puddle. That's basically how it's described Alicia feels like she's melting into butter and everything. And to the point that because she's feeling like that, she slips over into the tub, which is kind of described as like a jacuzzi-like setting. She basically, slips over into the tub, basically underwater, but emerges all right. And it's from there that Tails and her kind of get it on again. Because Tails sees that she's already in the pool, says, well, might as well, join you myself. And she's even, inviting him to join her as well. Basically he sees her, what I'm saying is he sees her in the pool, and he's like, well, might as well jump in myself. And Alicia's like, yeah, why don't you come and join me? Kind of starting to get into it a little bit. And that's what happens. They end up doing it in the pool, basically to the point that, he does, give her that satisfaction. But there's a part of her, and this was what's interesting about the character development with Alicia, before she started to get into it and everything, with Alicia, is basically, she kind of envies Bernadette and Vanilla and maybe even Rosemary to an extent, because she's a little older than each of them. And she's to the point that even if she has intimacy, she can't get knocked up. And again, Tails has to reassure that that doesn't matter because she's hot and beautiful as a MILF no matter what. And that's what kind of helps Alicia get into the mood, be more accepting of it, especially during the procedure, if you know what I mean, the moment, if you know what I mean. Anyway, they get to the ending here where, of course, the moment of release occurs for both. And the story describes Alicia kind of thinking and hope and wishing that she still could be fertilized, if you know what I mean, so that Tails couldn't knock her up and potentially allow her to have another child. But she knows that's not true. But she still, basically, just like the other ladies before her, wants more. Because when they're done, basically, and Tails asks her how it was, instead of saying it was great, wonderful, whatever, she ends up kissing Tails on the lips. Because he's the one that has to kiss her on the lips and kiss her all over her body and stuff. Here, as a way to say thank you, or to give him an answer, she's the one that kisses him passionately on the lips, and then tells him it was wonderful, and then and then asks the question if he can do the same thing he's doing for Bernadette, and unbeknownst to her, Vanilla, and that's give her satisfaction every other time he comes around, which again he does agree with. So you might be asking yourself, well, is that it? Is that it for that story? Not exactly. Because basically, Tails rules and the boys drool, I think, or Tails rules and the girls drool, I think that's his name, has another chapter in mind. Now, I don't know who's continuing the story, since apparently Tails rules, the girls drool past or something, or at least somebody said that's what, someone said that's what happened, there. I don't know what's going on there, but apparently someone's still doing the story. If it is him, I don't know why somebody would say that, about that writer. But anyway, to get back onto what I was saying, you would probably wonder, well, is that it? That the end of the story? Not exactly, because the plan is to do more. And the next character apparently on the list is Isabella Mongoose, who is Mina Mongoose's mom from Archie Comics. Mina Mongoose, also from Archie Comics. Her mom, Isabella Mongoose, is also going through a similar situation of she needs sexual satisfaction, and she even asked Mina if she can get it on with Ash, Mina's boyfriend in the comics and in the story, which Mina's like, no, hell, heck no way that's going to happen, no way I'm going to let you do that. But she does promise to find a solution, and I think that solution is going to come, obviously, in Tails. And I've already kind of guessed exactly where this might lead to if it continues. Not just is it going to continue with Isabella Mongoose. No. I think it's also going to continue, if not conclude, with Rosemary. I really do. I think Rosemary's going to be on the list too, Tails' mom. And then it'll probably, end with Tails having a, 1, 2, 3, 4. It would end up basically with Tails having a sixsome, if you know what I mean, with all the ladies, if you catch my drift. So, I could be wrong. My chin just hit the mic again, but I could be wrong, but we'll see. But that's what it seems to be, leading to, in my opinion. That's what it seems to be heading towards. But overall, these two are humorous. But overall, this story, along with the other one, Adventures of Miles and the Wives of Mobius, are humorous, funny. They got some great character development, for some of the characters in these situations. The storyline, believe it or not, kind of makes sense whether you agree with it or you don't. And And overall, it's just a fun stories just to read and pass the time with. And you don't have to take them too seriously because they are just fan fiction that would never officially see the light of day under Sega or any other comic book publisher. You know that. So I thought I'd just come on here and, again, as I mentioned, give you a more clearer, potentially more extensive, as you can probably tell by this recording, discussion on the 2 Adult Tales fan fiction stories that you just need to see and read for yourself. And just like the original one, I will provide the links in the description, guys. So until next time, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Comment if you like. Live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super chat, super stickers are open in the live chat. You can also support me at Venmo at Brian-Romer-2 and at Cash App at BWRothers98, which would be greatly appreciated, especially at this time right now. You can also check me out at patreon.com/BWRothers for the $1, $3 tier of support there. You can also check me out at VENMO at BWRothers for content you can't get here on YouTube. You can check me out at BWRothers Discussions, all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. I will be putting up some new podcasts in the near future, so keep on the lookout for that there. Also check me out at Deviantart.com, says BVW1979, and at my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are overall on these. Have you seen them yourself? What are your thoughts? And if not, again, the links will be provided below. And until then, I will talk to you all later.